Come inside and join me as we dissolve the boundaries of sound and fiction. Greetings, my friend, and welcome back. It's that spooky time of year again, and the air is heavy with dread. But not more for any other than Mrs. Henley, a Year 8 English teacher, who has just received a shocking submission from one of her students. The following story contains harsh themes, such as self-harm and harm towards animals. Listener discretion is advised. If you can handle that, happy Halloween, and let's get lost in the spirit of this peculiar holiday for episode 64 of Sound Fiction, from your admirer.
I write to you from far away, to confess my love, but not to stay. For it is you who made me feel the warmth of life, that love is real. My words are humble, but so am I. I'm unremarkable, a passerby. My mind is old, though I am young. This is the reason I can't hold my tongue. Day and night, I work so hard. From building site to lumber yard, I labor till the light is gone. My bones are sore. My name is John. My life is simple. I cannot lie. The point of it, I wonder why. That is until I got a clue, a glimpse of beauty, the sight of you. I recall the day. How could I not? The breeze was cool, though the sun was hot. At the gates, I saw you there, with eyes of hazel and auburn hair. You lightly laughed, you heartily smiled, inviting me to watch you a while. So watch I did until you departed, which left me feeling quite broken-hearted. I then went home, all on my own, to cook, eat, and sleep alone. The day was done and the past behind, but still you lingered inside my mind. How could it be? What have I missed? To have never felt a love like this. What could I say? What should I do to help you feel this deep love too? I chose right then and made it my task to lead you toward this love you'd unmask. Then sleep I did in my cold bed, with plans for you to one day wed. Again I encountered you, my love, as if sent down by God above. You ended your day, and so did I. I followed you home, simply to spy. Of this I am ashamed to say, but it is the truth, what I did that day. I couldn't resist. I had to know more. So I watched you come home and close the front door. Outside I was, and outside I stayed. In the darkness of night, I sat and I prayed for just one more look, a frivolous glance, and God answered my call by some marvelous chance. You appeared in the window, flooded with light. I held back the tears with all of my might. You looked in the mirror, drying your hair. I cried in the bushes, watching you there. At that moment I knew I had to declare the love I was feeling, how none could compare. So a gift I would leave you the very next day, on your doorstep to find a present displayed. Early at sunrise, I acted with haste to give you your gift without time to waste. I left it right there, in front of your house, gutted and bloody, a gray little mouse. I giddily waited for you to depart, to stumble across my small piece of art. But right as you did, I felt quite surprised when I saw your pale face, the look in your eyes. Admiration was not what you felt, but a different feeling for the gift you were dealt. My heart was as if a knife had been thrust, for the look on your face was that of disgust. You eagerly fled, to class I presume, as I spent the day shrouded in gloom. Why didn't you smile at my little gesture? I needed your praise, for this I felt pressure. It soon became clear that it wasn't enough. A wee little mouse couldn't be up to snuff. You just needed more, and I'd make sure you'd have it, which is why by your door I left you a rabbit. Fresh and bloody, with stains on the floor, a sight to behold you couldn't ignore. It indeed was a present, and just so you'd know, I made sure its ears were tied in a bow. I waited with glee to see your reaction, but oddly enough, to my dissatisfaction, for this present I left, you didn't feel keen. When you saw it right there, you let out a scream. The guilt that I carried for causing you fright stayed with me intensely, all day and all night. To make you feel fear was not my intention, so began my response, my act of redemption. I only did wish to make you feel safe, to be understood, in my heart have a place where you never need worry. I'd kill for you, dear. I wished you to know this, though my methods are queer. I soon realized that these gestures were shocking, that you acted of panic, you never were mocking. The message I sent was so misconstrued, but my love for you surges, it can't be subdued. A man who can kill can put you in danger, especially one you don't know like a stranger. That's why my third gift will come at a price, not one of death, but of sacrifice. I finally see how you need to be charmed. I know love is bold, but don't be alarmed. At home I prepared it, to you, from me, though that night I lay there in agony. The following day I worked at a pace, slower than usual, but waiting with grace. I then saw you leaving, outside of the hall. I followed you home, and watched by the wall. The gift I had placed inside of a box, with a note I had tucked in one of my socks. I laid on the ground and waited all night, watching your window, hoping for light. Alas, you appeared, to view your reflection, and when morning arrived, you'd feel my affection. I watched you so close, and dreamed of our life. Surely tomorrow, I'd make you my wife. The sun then came up at morning's first light. I set the small box in a place just right, so that when you stepped outside of the door, you'd see it there perfectly laid on the floor. And right as you left, that's just what you did. Finding my note attached to the lid, you opened it up to read what was on, containing 4 words from your admirer, John. You opened the box to see the inside, and as you did so, my heart filled with pride, for now you would know the pain of the sender. I present you the severed tip of my member. In that moment, I thought I should no longer hide, but before I could stand, you ran back inside. At a loss, I pondered, why is she so meek? But soon at your house arrived the police. I could not understand why you felt so afraid. By the strength of my love, I was truly betrayed. So I sit in my home, thinking how I was wrong, to scare off the one that I loved all along. I've concluded by now, there is no other way. There's no reason to live, no purpose to stay. With these words I bid you a final goodbye, and although you don't love me, I gave it a try. From your admirer.
These were the words printed on an A4 sheet of paper in Mrs. Henley's hands. She trembled, shaking the document like a frail leaf in the cool autumn breeze. She then grabbed her freshly poured glass of wine and finished it all in one go. Unsure of what to do with this poem, Miss Henley placed it back on the table and reached for another in the pile beside it. As much as she hated grading papers on the weekend, encountering something like this could have never been anticipated. and her feelings of annoyance were replaced with dread. The next day held more of the same. Awful and sickening feelings churning in the pit of her stomach. Although it was a happy day, spent with family and children laughing in the park, Mr. Henley could sense the horrid vibrations emitting from his wife. "Are you all right, darling? You seem to have gone quiet." She just shook her head and claimed to be fine, a claim her husband immediately knew to be false. In bed, Mrs. Henley stared fearfully at the window, thinking intensely about the poems handed in by her Year 8 class. The assignment was to write a rhyming poem that would scare her. The more impactful, the higher the grade. By those standards, that particular poem deserved an A+. But this poem was more than impactful. It was insightful. More confusing than the poem itself was the student who handed it in, Ryan Camplin. Ryan was an incredibly underwhelming student. Not stupid, but completely void of motivation. The idea of him putting effort into anything academic was foreign in every conceivable facet. As soon as Mrs. Henley read the first line, she knew he didn't write it. And although it was her duty to report such plagiarism, it was also her desire to confront him. The next day at school, Mrs. Henley handed back all of the Halloween poems. All but Ryan's. The bell rang, and as the class got up to leave, Mrs. Henley called Ryan over to her desk. She asked simply,
"Ryan, who wrote your Halloween poem?"
"I did, miss," Ryan pleaded.
"Ryan, I know you didn't write it. Tell me right now who wrote it, and you won't get into trouble."
Fine." Ryan proceeded to pull out his phone and show Mrs. Henley the chat log on his AI application. It appeared that the AI had written the entire poem, and in typical Ryan fashion, he didn't even change a single word. When asked if he knew what a member was, it became clear that he didn't even read it either. True to her word, Mrs. Henley didn't report Ryan and simply told him to write a new poem using his own words this time. Although the question had been answered as to who wrote the alarming poem, the mystery didn't end there. In fact, more questions had been brought to the forefront. The AI in Ryan's phone had truly written every word that made its way onto Mrs. Henley's desk. But how did it know to write those things? Years ago, when Mrs. Henley was just Mary, she studied at university in London. For a brief amount of time, she received a series of eerie findings on the front porch of the house she lived in during second year. At first, she believed them to be the wild prey of some neighborhood animals. But as time went on, the things left there became more sinister and intricate. One differing detail from the poem was that it mentioned a total of 3 gifts left by the psychotic admirer, when in Mary's experience, it was something like 20. It started with small animals, and sometimes insects, arranged into purposeful patterns or formations. Then, after a while, the animals got bigger, and were sometimes strung out along sticks, as if to resemble a picture in a frame. Mary knew that these morbid gifts were surely intended for her, and the final straw came in the form of a small green box one day sitting on her doorstep. Attached was a note reading, "From your admirer." Inside was a bloody piece of flesh that she couldn't properly identify. Not knowing what it was, and not wanting to find out, Mary left university abruptly without giving administration a proper reason. She transferred to another university closer to home, and looked over her shoulder for many years after that. In time, she slowly got her life back, and learned to live like a normal person without much worry. That is, until this ominous poem made its way across her desk. The prompt Ryan used to generate this poem was, "Write me a over 1,000-word poem that rhymes and scares the shit out of my teacher, Miss Henley." How this AI knew the past events of Mrs. Henley's life, she did not know. Because another differing detail from the poem was that she called the police after receiving the admirer's final gift, when in reality, she did not. Mrs. Henley, Mary, did not tell a single soul about any of the events she experienced during that time. Everything that happened stayed between her and her admirer. Thank you dearly for listening, and if you like stories like these, leave a comment of what you'd like to hear next. I want to thank the fabulous Zoe Flynn for voicing Mrs. Henley and putting up with me on a daily basis. She really is a superstar. If you want to show your support, share this show with other lovers of dark fiction, or better yet, become a patron to be an executive producer of the show and gain early access to episodes. Either way, I'll see you in the next one, where we dissolve the boundaries of sound and fiction.